What's up, y'all? I'm LTJ Reeds, and this is Throwing Light. And if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Tonight, I'm super excited to have another one of my IMO judges on here, and someone I look as a mentor in our community, Graylin Thornton, who is in San Francisco right now. Correct, Graylin?
Yes, I am. This is
Yeah.
home.
So I'm very excited to have you here. This is great.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so it's an
So
honor. So thank you.
It means the world to me that you want to be on here. So I'm super excited. I haven't seen you since we briefly got to spend a little bit of time at Dory together.
Yes.
We never really got to. I don't think we've ever really conversed about the competition at all. But I think it's just awesome to have you here. This is one of the. You're someone I'm just excited to see where this conversation goes and where we lead to. But you know what? Let's
Well,
go ahead
thank
and kick
you.
this off, Graylin. And why don't you go ahead and tell everyone how you got involved in the leather community?
Wow, that's a long story, but I will condense it. Um, you know, ever since I grew up in the Bay Area here, and I was a very sexually active young man, 16, 17, 18 years old, and I always wanted more, something different. And so I discovered, and I know this sounds cliche, but I saw Drummer Magazine, and I just hate saying that because people are like, oh yeah, everybody says that, but it's true. And I was dating a guy, his roommate had Drummer Magazine. I started looking through them, and I thought, well, the men are so unattractive, but I like what they're doing, and there must be hot men doing the same thing. So I went looking for them, And so I I went to San Francisco. It's like I will find me some leather people,
Okay.
and it happened. Eventually, it happened, and I joined my first leather club when I was 26.
Which club was that?
South It was called South Bay Leather Uniform Group, SLUG, and it's now Santa Clara County Leather Association or something. They've morphed, but this was in 1986, so a lot have changed since then. So that was my beginnings, and what brought me full circle to San Francisco was my job in the club was to learn to produce events. And so for the summer, I got to spend the summer with Alan Selby, who is the Mr. S and Mr. S. And so for the whole summer, I was with Alan, and that's when I met people, Mr. Marcus and Tony DeBlas and Vern Stewart and all those people who became my mentors. I was basically with them for that summer, and then it just continued. So, I just followed and did the things that they told me to do.
So, for people that aren't familiar, why don't you tell us a little bit about Drummer Magazine?
Wow. Well, Drummer Magazine, it was a magazine produced by, well, I have one. That might be easier. Let's see.
We live in a society where they want visual aids, so any
You
visual.
know, this is the latest one, and this is the second one to feature a black man on the cover. I was the first black man on the cover, so it's 30 years before another black man was on the cover.
Wow,
Right. Yes.
wow.
And
How do you feel about that? I'm curious. Like this is a little bit when I hear
oh,
that and you say 30 years since there's been another,
yes.
can I ask why? Can we?
You can ask why, but I think, the answer is more. So I was the first black man on Drummer Magazine. And, that took, let's see if it's 15, 16 years, for a black man to be on the cover. And so 30 more years for another black man to be on the cover. Um, I hate to say this, but there is so much racism in leather and so much um, it's a stereotype, and people think when they think Leatherman, they think the big white Tom of Finland looking dude, and they forget that there's so many others out there, people who look like us and people who don't look like us, basically. And it just took them a while to get back to it, and it's really too bad. They have a black editor now, and if it weren't for him, I don't think that this one would have happened. So, it really takes people to be diligent and to look at what they're doing. I go through that all the time. Even when you look at videos, porn videos, you rarely see black or brown people in them unless it's a black and brown fetish video. Then you see us. But other than that, you really don't see us much.
Um, I'm literally in shock on the inside right now. I just like because we're in the community here, Graylin, and we're talking about making changes and being the changes we want to see and diversity and inclusion. I don't mean to be messy, but obviously, kind of, you heard what the latest one of the judges from IML getting removed. Okay, it kind
Mm-hmm.
of goes into that because they were a full Nazi, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but that's concerning, and it's hard for me to be able to move forward from knowing that in 30 years after you had the presence of yourself on this magazine, that culture as a community, that were, I mean, how many other people of color have been on the magazine, drummer? Do you know?
I have a number of them here, and I always look through them. And I think I've counted maybe two Asian API men, maybe two Latinx men. We're just not there, and we're not represented. And you bring up a good point with people fetishizing uniforms, specifically Nazi uniforms and that sort of thing. And it gets hazy there, because on one hand, you don't want to tell people what they can do as consenting adults in the privacy of their own dungeon.
Mm.
Whether or not what I think about it is irrelevant, but I don't feel that I can go into someone's dungeon and tell them what they can and can't do. But it's when you bring that out of the dungeon that it starts to get a little bit more messy. And the other part of that is when you bring that attitude out of the dungeon. You could play whatever you want in the dungeon, but when you come out, you got to get right again. You know, and if you're not able to do that, if you bring that outside the dungeon, there's going to be issues. And I say this all the time to people. Leather people are made up of a lot of people who found leather, came into it for some reason, but they're still people, and they bring everything with them that they brought. They don't turn into leather people and be like, oh, I'm a great person now. They're still those assholes that they were at home before leather. So, they just bring all of that with them. And then we're surprised. It's like, but there's racists in America. We know this. So if there's racist leather people as well. It's just a numbers game.
Well, the fact that what we're seeing and what we're about to go through in the most horrific way, is people are going to become more comfortable. And my fear is that what we decided to remove from our community actually might become more acceptable. So then what do we do? You get what I'm saying? Because
Hmm.
there's something that's very self antagonizing, self hate, that I feel like there's this little need in gay men to want to be accepted by straight men, and particularly I would say white men as well. That's a whole different thing. And I feel like in a lot of ways that our community, not so much the leather people, but we get to our mainstream gay culture that isn't as transphobic. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
They're championing for transgender people to lose their rights, and
Right.
to go back to fetishizing. And this is a real conversation. I come from Louisiana,
Hmm.
racist as can be. Okay, we have in Louisiana one of the largest African American populations in the country. Okay,
Hmm.
it's very much a black white kind of tense thing. Only South Carolina has been the only place where I could like feel it. You feel
Hmm.
the tension, the non-interacting with each other because y'all are of different race. Like you feel it.
Hmm.
And what I knew before I moved to Austin and being, engaging different types of men, I found that black men were fetishized to be tops with large penises,
Hmm.
and that was the expectation. Okay,
Yes.
and I'm going to use my blank profile on Grinder to sift out what I want because I don't want anybody to know one, I'm gay, and then not so
Hmm.
much gay. I'm looking for a black man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I come to Austin, and I know this is the craziest thing that you're going to hear, but I didn't know that black men were allowed to be bottoms until I came to Austin, Texas. And I know that's crazy, but you have to understand the towns and the way that people think over there. And like I kid you not, because there was this cultural expectation that I'm going to be on the DL with the black man with the large penis.
Mm-hmm.
They had no other purpose but to fulfill that need in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, it's so troubling. Here we are. It's 2025, and we're going backwards. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get myself in trouble, but and I don't mean to harp on this, but it is very much a concern for me to hear that Drummer Magazine has only had two black men, and it took 30 years, and it makes me go back to what just happened in the IMO judge
Mm-hmm.
announcement, and it makes me think that that's going to be more accepted. You get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I have the opposite hope. I was very close to the judge who was disqualified from IML. I've known him since I was in my early 30s, and he taught me a lot as a mentor and a friend. Um, but after everything that happened, I don't want to turn it into that story, but it'll lead up to it. After everything that happened, I started doubting myself. Like, did I know this was happening? Did I see anything in the house? And I've been doing that constantly. Like, well, what about this? And I saw nothing. But the point is we don't know who people are outside of how we know them. Like if I know someone as a friend and mentor, he's my friend and mentor, but I don't know him in other ways. And I feel that way about, black and white relationships. If we're in a relationship with another white guy, we don't really know his motivation. Over time, we'll find that out. But, is he into me because he's just fetishizing me? Well, if we're still together 20 years later, then probably not. However, those are decisions that we have to make on the fly. And sometimes it's okay. You know, if we're in the mood to be fetishized or we're fetishizing the other way around, then, it could be all go ahead. But when it's the fetishizing of us, it starts to get murky because it takes the power away from us a little bit, just a little bit.
I've heard some crazy scenarios that people do in role playing, especially with the white black dynamic. You
Mhm.
can go some very surprising places that I've learned and things like that. Um, how do
What?
we? And I want to actually take on your looking at it more positively, that we're going to stand firm in what we believe in our principles. Um,
Mhm.
so how do we get the next person of color in the drummer magazine, or any, like, how do we start, um how can we get around our main medias and try to portray something that looks more diverse?
I think that, and it's something that's really happening here in the Bay Area. I think that we have to put ourselves out there as well. We have to be willing to say, yes, I'm a strong, powerful black man into leather, and then represent that and have people take our pictures and see how we are. But, you mentioned DL before. And, if you're on the DL, you're not going to do that. And, I know a number of black men who think that leather's a white thing,
Mhm.
although they participate in it. They don't want anyone else to know that they participate in it because they think that their black friends are going to say, why are you doing that? It's a white thing. So, we have to be willing to also step out and put ourselves out there to be seen.
You know what? This is an interesting. So I had a crystal meth addiction or fought battle that for like 8 years. That too had a racist component to it because it's typically considered to be a white person's drug. So black men doing crystal meth is even something that is a you don't you don't hear about a lot, even though it's happening. All races, everyone's doing it. But
Hmm.
I have seen more. I actually Austin has let me see black people participate in everything. Really, I guess you could say. And there's a lack of black culture here in Austin. So in a lot of ways, because I'm coming from Louisiana where it's strictly white and black. Like if there are, and
Hmm.
I'm not being rude or anything, if there's any kind of Hispanic thing going on, it typically has something to do with poverty or someone working for something. That's how it was when I was growing up. When I got
Hmm.
to Texas, the Hispanic population just it felt like for the first time in my life, and I know this is the weirdest thing to say, but like I was not the only target. Like
Right.
going from being like for me, being a black person that talks white, that is highly educated, who's been in tons of interracial relationships. I've always had my black identity challenged. It actually wasn't until I got involved with the leather community, which is going on about 3 years, that I felt more a part of more a part of being a person of color. Black Men in Gear helped me a whole lot.
Hmm.
They've been so supportive, including me. My mentors, Tobias, all of them. No one's ever made me feel less than or that somehow I'm not. And
Right.
that's just been transformative for me in this community because I've seen my confidence really come out through the diversity and the things that we do within our community. But, I had that insecurity a little bit about, well, because I'm a person of color, can I be on the cover of a magazine? Like, am I going to be am I going to, are people going to digest me here in Austin as well as they're going to digest me in Omaha, Nebraska? Like, because if my skin color gives me an X, I'm losing all of these, I don't know how to say it, but it just seems like people don't understand, and you can probably relate to this, right? What it's like to get up every day, go through the routine of getting your day going. And there's just this one little thing that's in your head that's not in a lot of people's heads is, am I going to be harmed in any way because of the way I look? Am I going to go outside and go to the mailbox and someone think that I'm not the owner of the house? Like you don't, there are these things that people of color have to think about that people that
Hmm.
are not of color don't think about. Like we're trying to tiptoe on eggshells
Hmm. Oh
with our
yeah.
identities because we don't want to be targeted.
Right, right, absolutely. I could give you another example of that. This happened 2 years ago here. We had just moved into this studio, me and my partner, who's white, and one of a boy that was no longer a boy, a young man who I've mentored part of our family was house sitting for us and locked himself out. And we had to call. Sorry, we had to call another friend who's white, another boy that I have collared, to come over here, bring his ladder, and climb through the window of my apartment to let Jay in because I didn't want a black guy on a ladder climbing through my window. And maybe nothing would have happened, but the risk was there. And that had to be something I thought of. And this is just 2 years ago. And I'm calling somebody else saying, I don't want him climbing through that window with a ladder, because we know what will happen. But, the white guy came over, climbed through the window, everything was fine. So, it is something that we have to think about. And we think about it constantly. Even when it comes to dungeon play, um, I don't tell people this very often, but when I bottom in dungeon play, especially if it's flogging or single tailing, I have a fantasy that's going through my head. And I live that fantasy, and the scene helps me live that fantasy. And the person, the top, is only a tool there for me in my fantasy. It could be anybody as far as I'm concerned. As long as he has the skill set to flog and single tail me, then I'm good. But I don't really pay attention to him, because I'm running my own fantasy. And that fantasy is, did you ever see the movie Mandingo?
No, I haven't seen
I know you're younger, aren't you?
it.
It's an older movie, but there's a scene in Mandingo who is the slave, where he's about to be sold in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and he's standing there, and he's the biggest. It was Ken Norton, the boxer, and he's just a big, muscular black man, proud, everything. And I've never been that. I was never that growing up because I was light skinned, had these light eyes. My cousins teased me, called me names because, light-skinned black dudes were not the thing when I was young. You
Dude, they
need to be
weren't the
dark.
thing when I was young, so
Yeah, yeah,
we got that
yeah.
together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You need to be dark. So
Oh,
when I saw that movie and I saw him up there, I could imagine myself being that big, black, strong man. And he's beautiful. Yes, he was a slave, but that's the fantasy that goes through my head. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm the baddest motherfucker here, and they want to sell me, but I'm the most prized possession. So I run that narrative through my head, and it actually helps me. It gets me out of the little yellow skinned boy back to being the big black man, and that's who I am in my head when I bottom in scenes. That was a lot. I'm sorry.
no, I had a lot of, I was called so many nicknames. I mean, I tell people, it wasn't women so much. I mean, women will remind me that we're like white or something, that I was
Hmm.
black before they engaged in anything with me or something like that. I had tons
Right.
of racing guy friends that, I fooled around with. Like they're the only thing. Not my sexuality did not seem as much of a hurdle as my race did. Just getting up and made to feel like you're ugly or you're contagious because your skin is like that was how I was made to feel.
Hmm.
And instead of being embraced by black men, no, 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 no. You're not only light skinned, you act
Hmm.
white. You are not
Right.
one of
And what the hell does that mean anyway?
I think back then when I was growing up, it meant educated. That's what I
Right.
back then.
Yes.
I don't know if that's
Yes.
evolved or not, but we're talking about 30 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah.
It meant educated. It meant I
Hmm.
am talking educated, so therefore I am a threat.
Hmm. Oh yeah. I had my father say that to me once. They sent me to private school for first through eighth grade. And I had my father say to me one day, "Oh, you talk like you white." And it's like, well, you sent me to private school, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Like what do you expect me to do?
yes,
And then, when you hear that, I know this isn't the topic, but when you hear that, you start to pull back your education
of
and you
course,
start acting
exactly.
like you think people expect you to act, you know?
That part, I did that. I dumbed
Hmm.
myself down just so
Hmm.
I didn't have to deal with people.
Yes, absolutely. You know,
Absolutely,
yeah, yeah. Black people
absolutely.
telling you you act white people not what you either. So
But
it's just like, what the
I
fuck?
had to go between back and forth. Look, I was black on Sundays. But every other day, I'm trying to hide, with my camo hat and all. And some of that still has come with me as an adult, but like it doesn't mean the same thing it did. My thing is that I spent my majority of time around white people, and the black
Hmm.
people I spent time with, I only saw Sunday at church on the south side of town that we went to. Me and my mom drove 30 minutes to go to church to the south side, the black side of town, to go to church. But
Uh-huh.
Monday through Saturday, it was dodging. Can I go to a party and not hear someone say nigger? Can I do that? I
Hmm.
remember going to a party, showing up, and they're like, "It's a nigger here. There's a nigger here." And then one of the boys, my friend, country, was like, "Oh, that's not a nigger. That's just Lewis." Like I literally had to deal with that.
Hmm.
Like, and I don't think
Hmm.
people understand the psychological damage, the trauma. I was chased from a party, and people knew me. They knew how harmless I was. They knew I was a good guy. And I'm on the same. I had people that I went to elementary school. By the time we got to high school, had a vendetta against me just because of the color of my skin, even though we sat in classrooms together. Some of them were my friends. When
Hmm.
high school came, it was just like they turned into animals, like they didn't know who
Oh
I
yeah.
was. And it was just like, like, man, it's bad. I had it bad. I really
Oh
did.
yeah.
I really did.
I
And
believe you, brother.
yeah.
And and I'll tell you this. I wasn't invited to our eighth grade graduation party. In fact, I was pulled out of class and told me I wasn't invited because they didn't feel it'd be a safe environment for me. It's like you're telling an eighth grader this? So yeah, it's gone off through the years.
I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get close to wrapping up. I was in the second grade. All right, this is the only time there was another black person in the same class with me because I got gifted and talented. So everybody was white and gifted and talented. Okay,
Hmm.
second grade. Okay, there's this girl in class. She's having a skating birthday party. She comes in and hands out invitations to everybody but me and that girl Keisha. That's when I first realized
Hmm.
what racism was.
Oh yeah.
And so my teacher felt bad for me and let me go to like a next door a next door teachers who happened to go to the same. She was a black lady that went and got her hair done at the same place my mom did. So they had won an ice cream party and she let me come over there to go to that party. So that black teacher would invite me to all these things and I would go over there and
Hmm.
participate in them. And I had white teachers that were really cool too. Really, I had like my Mr. Gone was one of my best teachers anyway. But I ended up seeing that girl in high school after, because I don't remember having much classes with her, but we were in teenagers and just seeing her, and she came and she apologized to me about that,
Wow.
and I thought that was pretty cool.
That is
That's the
very
thing,
cool.
y'all. That there are good people out there. We just don't focus on that. But
Hmm.
she felt that she needed to apologize to me.
That's a good thing.
And
Just
because who I what like I guess that memory was just there, and
hmm.
we had a moment like because I think she was doing track and I was playing soccer or something like that, because she had gone to some other school, she transferred back to my school like her junior or senior year, and she's like, oh Lewis, and like because you recognize each other from kid or whatever, and
Hmm.
then just organically, like I said, she apologized. And there are people that said some things to me that they realized after the fact, girls telling me if they kiss me they're going to turn black and all that type of stuff. So
Their wish.
but it's
But
all about racial trauma that we can go on about.
yes,
So
yes,
this is
yes.
the deal. We've got people in this administration coming in that's going to make us have to go through this, and people don't
Hmm.
understand, and it's not fair.
Hmm.
They have literally come in, and all they're doing is targeting people. There hasn't been one single mention of helping us lower anything cost.
No, no. And
Here
there's
we
not gonna
go. The
be.
biggest
There's not
con
gonna
in
be.
American history, like literally the
Hmm.
biggest con in American history.
Oh yeah.
Before we
It,
end this episode, Graylin, every time I have someone on this episode, I have asked the same question at the very end. Is there any aspect of our community that you think that we are not focusing on enough that we should be focusing on?
oh, absolutely. Us. I think that, you know, we have a certain aspect that we have. We love winning titles. We love dressing up and slaying and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish that we would put that type of energy into one communicating and
Yes,
then boosting our own skill sets. It's like let's let's become the best players we can. That's the thing that pulled me through early on because I was surrounded by there were so many black leather people here. I'm being serious. There were a lot of us. And skill set was important to us because that's how we got to play. So if I went to a 15 association party and I wanted to play, I knew people would play with me because I was highly skilled. And so I think that we need to start building up our skill sets and promoting that and just pushing ourselves to think outside the box. I think that we limit ourselves. And so there's so much out there. There's so much more that we don't even tackle. So I think that we need to push ourselves out the box and encourage ourselves to do that. If somebody is doing something, encourage them to do it. Go, girl. Whatever you need to say. Knock yourself out. So I think that we need to start, really pushing ourselves to be the best selves that we can be, especially around BDSM.
that's how I 100% feel everything. That's how I feel. That's what I want. I want to see us focus on us and go to go back to your point. I like had to almost make this post. I had to keep going over my head about how frustrating it is to see us fight over leather contests, put all that energy and time into who we're betting for a contest. Okay.
Hmm.
and we're not putting that same energy into our community, betting the people that are in our community, looking out for each other, making sure we're the best leather people outside of a contest.
Yes.
That should not be the motivator. Because let me tell you, Graylin, what I judged 4 contests here, and I've seen ups and downs with judging contests. Two of the
Mm-hmm.
contests, the people got their titles taken away from them because
Oh
of
shit.
controversy. Out of the four,
Okay.
50% of them went left. Okay. I had two that
Okay.
turned out well. I had two that did not go well. And so it just, and I tried to go into these judging contests with an open mind. But, a lot of these people that go on the judging scene are betting and doing all this. And I've just seen so much work go into exposing people for a contest.
Yes.
Graylin, let me in here. Let me in here. I'm going to get you right here. Check it out. But didn't bet that. Look at the IMO contest. Think about that. You waited until a contest to bet somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not betting people otherwise. Does that
Right.
make sense? That's the only
No, it,
concern with what someone is doing is if we're going to put them up in a contest.
right. Oh, absolutely. And I know I'm going
Uh,
over, but so I said earlier, I joined my first leather club in 86. I ran for my title in 93. That's 7 years. And so, I never had like a mock judging panel because I didn't have to because I fucking knew everything. I had been living this life for 7 years. There was nothing anyone in a judging panel could ask me that I didn't know from experience, and they knew that. And so I honestly believe that we need to take the energy that we put into being in a contest, take that energy and put it into our lives and learn and live the leather lifestyle before we're trying to do something else. It's like let it be part of your life. So when you stand on that stage, if you want to stand on that stage, you can say, "This is my experience, and I own everything that I'm wearing, and none of it's over $10,000 because this is my own shit." That's what I want to see.
you got it. You're right. All right, Graylin, I appreciate you coming on this show. I hope to see you soon. Hopefully, we'll have
You
a
will in April.
yes. Graylin is going to be the keynote speaker for Austin King Weekend here in Austin, in my area, my town. He's
Yes,
I'm so
yes,
excited
yes, yes,
about that.
yes.
So Graylin, before I end the show, I've now created a little pattern that I'm going to do that I'm going to have the guests repeat after me. Okay. So
Okay,
I'm going to, when I count to 3, you're going to say, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right.
okay,
You ready?
yes.
1, 2, 3.
If you're not throwing light, you're not acting right.
That's right. Graylin, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll hear more
Thank you.
soon. Okay.
All right, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.